There will be a special presentation at the West Bloomfield Township Main Library Meeting Room. This will happen Wednesday, March 27th at 7 p.m. It's the Greater West Bloomfield's connection to the Underground Railroad. It'll be highlighting Oakland County's role in the Underground Railroad with additional focus on direct connections to the path to freedom that specifically passed through Greater West Bloomfield. So to break this down a little bit more, join us live on The Splash, historian from Oakland County Parks. We have Carol Egbo. Am I saying that correct?
Egbo.
Egbo. Thank you so much for joining us, Carol. We appreciate that. Now, I just want to talk about this presentation in general. So first and foremost, what drew your personal interest to this history from Greater West Bloomfield to the Underground Railroad?
Well, I, like many of us, have always had an interest in the Underground Railroad. But then as I had the opportunity to pick some research topics, I realized I could focus on the Underground Railroad and specifically on Oakland County. And my own community of Pontiac was where I began, and then began to discover all these little tentacles that were connected, like West Bloomfield.
Oh, okay. So this seems like a very, very interesting presentation overall. Now, what do you want people who attend and who see this presentation to take away from it?
I think the importance of the Underground Railroad and the fact that it's all of our history. We're all a part of the history of the Underground Railroad. My own research concentrates on the freedom seekers themselves. Not that the abolitionists weren't important, but as I looked at what other historians were doing, particularly some 20 years ago, everything was on the abolitionist side. My interest was, what about the people who had the courage to try to utilize the Underground Railroad? So I've kind of focused on that. In that way, you still have to deal with the abolitionists, but it's kind of a little shift in perspective.
Okay, so I want to pick your brain on an aspect of this, right? The research aspect of it, because that's an important part of it. Going through certain channels, talking to certain people, and getting reliable information from credible sources. Can you just go into a little bit some of your research methods that you that has been proven effective for you, I should say?
Okay, one of the things is to start with what Henry Louis Gates says, the mythology of the Underground Railroad. A lot of stuff has been made up. So first of all, I sort through what I think is credible, and then I go looking for evidence. And the lucky thing now is the internet is beginning to offer more and more records that can help in that research. With a freedom seeker, I often look at newspapers from the 1890s, believe it or not. What I found, some of these people who were freedom seekers who made it to a place like Pontiac are quiet about that their whole life. Then 1890, they're in their 70s or their 80s, and they have this need to tell their story. So 3 of the people I've done extensive research on told me that story in a newspaper article, gave me enough information that I could track them to the plantation they were actually enslaved on, which to me is the critical part of the story. What was their life like? Then the journey. Can I find how they came through Ohio? Where did they stop? Who helped them? So those ideas, going through old census records. I literally went through for Oakland County, the 1860 census, and found all the African Americans. Then I looked at where were they from? Kentucky, Virginia, born in the 1830s. That tells me they were likely enslaved.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm kind of going through this. I'm like, it makes sense, the process that you take, going through the official census, going through the numbers and dating and connecting dates. It makes sense. And I love how you explained that and broke that down. With us right here live on The Splash, historian from Oakland County Parks, Carol Egbo, just talking about the connection between Greater West Bloomfield and the Underground Railroad. With the presentation that'll be at the West Bloomfield Township Main Library Meeting Room, Wednesday, March 26, 7 p.m. also. Now, like you just broke down so many different things, and I love how this is coming together and how you're explaining this. With you being from Oakland County Parks, can you explain how, if any, any local parks or natural spaces play in preserving some of the history in Oakland County?
My actual starting point was Catalpa Oaks in Southfield. I was researching the farmers who once owned that land. What I found out, they all belonged to the Presbyterian Reformed Church, which was actively involved in the Underground Railroad. Right now, that congregation is one of the few things we can have documentary evidence for. We know that that congregation was involved. So here I'm researching a park, which was farms, and these farmers were assisting freedom seekers coming through Southfield to Detroit. So then I said, okay, I can find more. And that began my journey to try and find other people who were connected.
Interesting, interesting. I love the fact that, like you said, you are using these natural spaces, local parks, putting things together, but just using local resources and partnerships in general. With that being said, can you speak on how the connection and the partnership with the West Bloomfield Township Public Library has also enhanced your work and presentation?
Well, as I moved and looked at West Bloomfield, and found a couple people here. I connected with Neil Hepburn, who's like a local historian for you folks there. And then together we said, wait a minute, we've got some puzzle pieces here. And that made me rethink West Bloomfield that honestly I hadn't given a lot of thought to. Then I realized, wait, it's sitting right next to Pontiac.
Yeah.
Then I began to hear these names. William Marathu might have been involved. William Gilmore might have been involved. Then I find an African-American soldier, Civil War soldier, who enlists in his regiment, and he's living in West Bloomfield in 1863. Then I say, I've got a story here.
Yeah.
And now I'll reach out to people like Gina Gregory and to Neil and to others because they know their history best. And now I'll come in with outside eyes and say, okay, help me know who these people are.
Right.
Because we're going to find a story here.
Oh, I love that. I'm just loving how you're putting the pieces together just as you're explaining it. And you're, like you say, using your resources, other local historians, just to bring it all together. We love that. Before we let you go, you want to give out any other details? Just give out the details and why people should come check out this presentation at the West Bloomfield Library.
Yeah, what I'm going to talk about is if we take the abolitionists, how do we find them? Keeping in mind the Underground Railroad was secret and illegal. No paper trail. So how do you find? I'm going to give some clues how you take someone and look at what church they belong to, political affiliation, who were their friends, who did they hang out with. Then I'm going to shift to freedom seekers. How do you find a freedom seeker? Place of birth is one thing, their family connections. So I'll kind of have two different chunks, and then at the end, I'll tell the story of the Parker family, which were freedom seekers from Virginia. And Henry Parker left behind an 8-page autobiography that was the clue to me totally finding information on this family.
Ooh, nice.
And they had a West Bloomfield connection. When they come from Virginia through Ohio, they end up on the William German farm, whose farm was partway between West Bloomfield and Farmington.
Oh, my goodness. I can't wait to hear that entire story and for you to put it together and paint that picture for our community. We want to thank you again for all of your work and for joining us. Once again, historian from Oakland County Parks, Bacak-Egbo. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.